The following is intended only for mature audience. Viewer and listener discretion is advised.
Hey folks, P. Basardo here, and you're listening to the Smoke Free Radio Network.
That was interesting.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Vaping and the Mic. This evening, we've got an awesome kind of guy on board, and we're going to be talking to him about, half a dozen things and more. It is one of those evenings that I'm hoping that we can consolidate some of our thoughts, to get our thinking possibly turned around back to a much better kind of way. I know everybody has been hit by an awful lot of things that have been going on. We're talking about Albany, Ohio, California, so many things. Huge vapor tax in Vermont, so many different things. But this evening we're going to try and work around a little bit about that and take a look at it and say, okay, how can we possibly make this a little bit better? How can we do something better? And this evening, it was one of those spur of the moment kind of things that I reached out to this gentleman and I said, hey, can you by chance? And he goes, whatever you need. And again, every time he does something, it just floors me. But this evening, if everybody would, please welcome Mr. Austin Hopper. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Mike. Thanks for having me on, buddy. Always good to chat with you.
It's been a long time coming. You know, I got together with you to do the voice recording when I did a very specialty novelty kind of show for me. But I haven't had a chance to get you on the show up until now. So this, for me, is kind of like a, check this out, kind of thing. Yeah, I've been looking forward to it. There are guests that I absolutely love to look forward to, and you're definitely one of them. Nick Orlando, when I posted this evening that we were going to be doing a show, Nick Orlando said two words. He goes, oh, boy. So Nick's in the chat. Everybody,
I love Nick Orlando, the godfather of vape.
He's the man in Florida that kicks ass.
Oh, absolutely.
You and I were
the funny
talking.
Thing is that you recognized it because I remember listening to your show. He doesn't think he's intimidating. I find that so hilarious, right? Because I'm not intimidated by very many people, but until I got to know Nick Orlando, he was one of them.
Oh, yeah. 2 years ago, I called him and I was trying to see if he wanted to put our juice line in his shop. And it's very, very cut and dry. A lot of business, a lot of things are going on. And I'm like, oh, wow, okay. And then the first time I ever saw his picture, I'm like, well, that is not a man that I really want to screw with a whole lot. It makes you laugh. But then at the OHVTA conference, I was able to meet him, shake his hand, talk to him. One of the nicest guys you'd ever meet.
Oh, he is. There's no question.
Just unreal. For anybody that is watching, listening, or doing otherwise, the phone lines are open this evening, and I'm going to make sure that everything looks like it's running well. So if you want to call in and have questions for Austin Hopper, the phone number, of course, is 215-383-5752, right down on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Give us a call. We'll put you on the air. You can talk to Austin, see what he's got to say. Now, this evening, I want to talk about Albany, New York, flavor ban that got tabled. I want to talk about 10 cent per mil in Ohio. I want to talk about California and what's going on out there. Because I know...
Well, we got a lot to talk about.
And the thing is, I don't want to get into all the nitty-gritty of it because we would be here for hours trying to figure it all out. But it's just, and folks, just, you got to know, even before the show started, this is the way that this guy thinks. we were talking, and all of a sudden he referenced somebody, and he told them, stop trying to find a way to say no and start trying to find a way to say yes. I understand that it's part of a sales technique, and I understand that it's part of a management mentality, but we weren't even talking about business, and this came rattling right out. Do you know what I mean? You're constantly in a positive frame of mind in everything that you do.
Well, I'm glad it appears that way on the outside, for sure. No question about that. But, I think the biggest thing is that I really enjoy what I do. And I think that's why it's easier for me than it is for most, is that, I realize that I don't control what happens, and I could let it beat me down and become negative about it, or I can try and figure out a way to move forward and do the thing. And that's the thing that I think is important, is that, is everything black and white? No, because unfortunately we don't know. We don't know what rules and regulations are coming down. We got crazy tax in Ohio. We got flavor bans and banning vaping in cities and states, and all these crazy taxes, and the PMTA. What are we going to do about that? If we allowed it, we would be gripped by fear. And someone once told me that fear is either your servant or your master. And one of the big things on that is that, we could all just freeze with what we're doing and be so afraid that we're going to come to an end that we don't do anything. Or we can realize, okay, let's proceed with caution. And I love how Demetrius always says, don't panic, but be aware. And I think that's important. And I think that's the biggest thing is, are all these things going on? Do we have these fights? Do we have to get involved? Do I believe that every manufacturer or mod maker or all those people picked up the phone and called people in Ohio to say, hey, whoa, wait a minute, this affects my business? I don't believe they did that, right? I know I did that because I sell into Ohio, and Ohio is important to me. I was at the OHVTA conference, and I stayed around. I went to stores, and I built relationships there, because that's what I do. And I think it's about relationships, and I think it's about community. And I don't think that changes whether it's where you live and call home, or it's in another state where you do business. I think you have a responsibility that if you're serving the needs in that particular area, that you're responsible for it. And I wish more people would think that way.
And I would wholeheartedly agree with you, because it is a mindset. And that was one of the biggest things, and you've already touched base on it. It is a mindset when you turn around and say, yes, I can do this, or, wow, I really got screwed about this. We're talking the same thing, but the mindsets are massively different. If you say, yes, I can do something about that, then you empowering. To where if you say, man, we're really going to get screwed, not only is it disempowering, but it turns off some of your brain that won't continue to push forward. As in, Albany, New York came out, they were going to do an absolute flavor ban. It was going to crush Albany. And yet here are the guys that are in Albany, Matthew Elliott and a bunch of other people got up and went, and I don't know if Greg Connolly made it. I don't really know who all was there, but what I do know is that those people turn around and they had a positive mindset. And what they were able to do is push enough to get the entire thing tabled. And to me, that's a lot of work accomplished, even though it might seem like a very minor thing. Because now, if I'm not mistaken, now that it has gone back and been tabled and looking at it again, not only did it buy more time, but it bought the capability that they might be able to change some people's mind and educate them.
Well, I definitely think it has an opportunity for education. I don't think there's any question about that. And I think the biggest thing is what that proves is that at least they put enough doubt and concern in the mind of the people that are representing them in Albany, New York, to say, hey, wait a second, are we really doing the right thing here? Is this really going to hurt our community, or is it going to help? And I think at least that they were able all the way to its destination, but at least they stopped it long enough to be able to talk to them and say, hey, why don't we reroute this? Because this isn't the track it needs to be headed on. And I think that's the biggest thing is they were able to make accomplishments, whether or not that we're going to see it come back. But at least now that they have some time to regroup and just breathe for a minute and just be like, okay, the stove may still be on, but at least the pressure cookers, the lid's been taken off.
Right.
And I think that's the biggest thing is that, it's about being able to function and to focus. And, it sucks for us. There's no question about that. And the reason for that is that we're also emotionally attached to this because we know what it's done for our lives and our loved ones. And I don't know anybody that I deal with personally that didn't come into the vapor industry because of them being affected by it, right? I don't know too many people that decided just to jump into it to make a quick buck, because I really don't talk to those people, right? Because they don't reach out to me, right? They're not really part of our community.
No.
Right? So that's just the truth. And I think that's the biggest thing is that, how do we rally the troops? How do we get all the meetings of the minds together? And, I will tell you that I did speak with James Jarvis and Bo McCoy about coming up with an education program to be able to push out to Ohio and see how well that's accepted, to see if we could do it in other states. So with some training modules and doing those kind of things to educate people along the way. And how do stores become educated? How do we make that affordable and effective and have some type of governance without having them come in and saying, this is what you have to do. We want to be able to take this package to them that's got a nice bow tie on it, have them open it and go, okay, this makes sense. Let's do that. Because otherwise, we're just waiting for them to sit around and tell us what we're going to do. I remember, it seems like it was 5 years ago now. It may not have been that long ago. But Mitch Zeller was in Chicago, and he said, you guys have been sitting around on your hands. We've been asking you how to regulate you. You've done nothing, and we need your help. Because if we have to regulate you, you're not going to like it. So a bunch of us went and sat around in this, I don't know, there must have been 35, 40 of us in this room. And we came up with no nomenclature towards children, things on the labels, all these things, no diacetyl, no acetopropanol, all these things that couldn't be in e-liquid and how it had to be manufactured, how it had to be. And we were told we were excluding people and we were just a good old boys club. And it kind of fell apart. And it was unfortunate because all we were trying to do was to give guidance. And, it's unfortunate. I remember Five Ponds was there, Space Jam was there, Cosmic was there. I was there with Cutwood at the time. And, Dimitri was there. I mean, there were some big names in the room. I remember, Jeremy Dollar was there. And, it was just a bunch of industry insiders who felt like we could come up together as a group and try to come up with some great ideas and get them rolled out. Because that's exactly what Mitch Zeller said we needed to do. And unfortunately, there are a lot of egos in the vape game. I'm certainly one of them, right? I can't deny that. And what I have to remember is other people feel that way too. And what happens is that we all have these natural instincts that we think that we can control things and my way's best. And what we need to remember is that we all have the same common goal. And we need to be able to sit down and come to some resolutions and compromises, right? I don't know the right thing to do about every situation. So let's say that there were 100 items that we needed to talk about. Well, you might have the best idea for number 2, Mike. I might have the best idea for number 39. Shell Hamill might have the best idea for number 12, right? Greg Connolly might have the best idea for number 7. We could go down the road, and if we would all bind those together, we'd probably come up with some pretty great ideas.
I would agree.
Right? But everybody thinks they need to have all I know exactly what we need to do. I wish that were the case, but none of us know exactly what we need to do. Because unfortunately, the FDA doesn't even know how to regulate us yet. And they're so scared to do anything that they're doing the wrong thing. And then we have states waiting on the FDA because they're not moving quick enough. Now we're getting caught up with state issues like we did in Albany, New York. Because the FDA hasn't said, this is the way it should be. There were some great things that Sean Casey came out to California. I wasn't able to attend the conference, but I did have dinner with him the night before. And he has a great idea of what we should do. And I don't know if it's been made public, so I can't really talk about that. not my place to bring his idea to light. But I will tell you, if he can pull that off, it's going to be a lot less costly than a PMTA. And, he did it in California because this is where most of the larger manufacturers are. And I don't know if he got the attendance that he wanted. I do know some of the groups that were there. It was nice to see that George showed up from Ruthless.
Mm-hmm.
And, obviously, Fig and those guys attended. And, it's amazing to see some of the leaders and what I call the staple brands show up, because I think that's important. And, there seems to, I wish we could come up with a united vapors coalition, right? That had the VTA, Safada, Greg Connolly, and everybody could come together and we could decide, okay, you guys do this really well, you handle that department. You guys do this really well, you handle that department. I wish we could set everybody down from every group and every state organization and just say, how do we work together? Because together we have to be a lot stronger than we are apart. Because just like when we were in Ohio and Nick was sharing what they do in Florida, how beneficial was that for Ohio? Right? So if every state organization came together and said, hey, this is our best practice, right? Half the people in the room would be like, oh, we can adopt that, right? The other half would be like, oh, this is what we do. And then the people could be like, oh, maybe we should do that. Right? We could learn best practices from each other. And I know a lot of the organizations work well together. I'm not saying that they don't. But what I'm saying is we really need to have a conference where we all come together. Nobody's got any boxing gloves on to prove I'm right, you're wrong. How about, we're just all human beings and we have a difference of opinion. And it doesn't make one person right or one person wrong. It just makes us different. And those differences are the things that make us diverse and be able to help us to be able to go out and talk to many people instead of one certain type of person. So I wish we had more cohesiveness in the vapor industry, and because that's what's really kind of tearing us apart. Sorry, I jumped up on a soapbox. You probably got questions.
Oh, no. You see, this is part of, for people that may not know a lot about Austin, he has run some of the largest, most successful companies in the vapor industry when it comes to e-liquid. Right there. See, the face of vape. And I'm not going to go into all of them. Yeah, I'm not going to go into all of them, but you have a very different outlook than somebody that may be in a smaller company or somebody that is experiencing success, but they don't know why they're successful. Then there's a huge gap in knowledge in that. And just as you were mentioning, it would be nice to see all of these groups coming together. And yet, I don't know if it's really possible with all the things that are in place at this moment. It could be. I don't know. I'm not going to naysay and say it'll never happen.
Well, it'd be nice if it would, though.
It would be nice if it did, because it would be beneficial for many people, many reasons. And it may yet happen, Adversity
From your
makes
mouth to God's ear.
Adversity makes strange bedfellows. It seriously does. But because
That's true.
it is, but because you've been able to see things from, let's call it an elevated position, looking down at the market, for lack of better words, okay? And you hear the things that are happening in California, you don't jump off the deep end the minute that somebody says. You sit back, you think of, and now I'm going to ask, how much of a role does all of your CEO experience filter into things that you are seeing today? Albany, Ohio, 10 cents tax, the things that are going on in California, Vermont, 92, 96% tax. How do
Minnesota, 95%.
How does your CEO experience filter out and help you focus?
Well, I will tell you that, Ohio specifically, right? As soon as they made the 10 mil announcement, right, we talked about, because our products were available in 30 mils, right? They're registered, sold prior to 8 and 30 mils. Do we need to go back to 30 mils for the state of Ohio to make it more affordable, right? The people aren't paying such a high tax. is it better for us to open up a facility in Ohio and manufacture it so that we don't have to pay shipping costs to get into Ohio that are so expensive? And those are the things that we're looking at, is how do we become a multi-state company to be able to combat some of those issues, or who can we co-pack with? And, do we need to cut our margins to help certain states?
Mm-hmm.
And those are the things that we looked at, because we don't want closed tank systems to go away. We want people to have every opportunity that we've had, right? If you remember when you and I started vaping, we were on these little crazy ego batteries with these little cartomizers and clearomizers and all these crazy things. And, I remember watching a video by Phil Basardo that was his journey through vape, right? When he used to filter stuff through tea bags and do all this stuff. And it was just hilarious when I watched it in Vegas. And congratulations to Mr. Phil Basardo for over 10 years without a combustible cigarette. So I'm very happy for him about that. He's certainly been a leader and a pioneer in the industry, and somebody I really look up to. And, those kind of things that, we've seen a lot of changes. And it's funny to me that we've gone from these 250 watt box mods back to a 350 watt pod system, right? I'll tell you a true story. I was in my office at Cutwood, and the guys from Juul come in, and they want to put Cutwood flavors in the Juul. And I laughed. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? We're never going to go to a closed pod system. Never. Because we were fighting for open container at the time. And I remember telling them that it would never happen. And boy, look at them today. Right?
Yeah.
Running away with the market and giving us all a black eye through the process. And I'm not saying that their product is bad, right? So please don't misunderstand. Right? What I'm saying is they have caused us, for anyone who does anything with advocacy, the biggest thing is people don't know the difference between this product and a Juul product.
No, they
when
don't.
You go in and talk to the people in the legislative body, they don't know the difference between open and closed. They think everything we do is Juul, because that's what they hear about from all their constituents. Oh, my kids are getting Juul at school, and they're doing this and they're doing that. And the problem, there's not enough of us that go ahead and do those things. And, it's unfortunate that some people don't think that their voice is going to matter. And there's companies that don't get involved because they think somebody else is going to do it. Well, those days are over, folks.
Yep.
Right? If you're doing business in a state, you need to support that state. If you're in a state that has issues, you need to be there. Right? And, one of those things that, and I have to tell them myself before somebody else points it out, I wasn't able to be in Sacramento yesterday. Right? But that doesn't mean I don't care what happens in Sacramento.
No.
And
far from it.
So, I will tell you, I got a call from the Florida Smoke-Free Association. And they said, hey, the lobbyists want you to come down and talk to the senators. And I went on and I looked up flights, and there was no flight that could get me there in time. And so I got in my car and I drove 36 hours to Tallahassee to be there to meet with them. I arrived an hour before I had to be there, went to the hotel, checked in early, took a shower, and went with no sleep because they had requested me to be there. Those are the things that, unfortunately, we have to do if we're going to say we're committed. Right? A lot of people can say, oh, I care about the industry. Well, then tell me this question. How many checks have you written? And if you can't afford to write a check, how many hours have you given? Who have you gone and talked to? Who have you met with? What are you doing? What messages have you posted that have come up with a help or a solution? How many phone calls have you made? Then you can tell me you care. Because if you care, it's action. Right? Just like love, action is a verb. So if you love the vapor industry, then you need to take action. It's not rocket science. If they hear from us enough and you say, hey, I'm a constituent in your area, I'm a small business, I pay taxes, If you get these messages out, people will pay attention. And that's the unfortunate reality, is that how many of us in the industry really are there that are actually doing those things on a daily basis? If you look at it out of 100%, I bet it's less than 25.
I
And
would
that's
agree.
unfortunate.
No, I would agree. It is the one thing that I keep harping on. The industry has so much apathy that it's not even funny. Not even funny. And by the way, Fig said he's just popping in to say hi, and Nick Orlando said he appreciates you.
Tell Nick I appreciate him, and Figgy, always a pleasure.
Paul Blabmeyer from Australia is listening this evening.
That's good. Hey, Paul.
Nick said, plus I miss your face.
Oh, how sweet is he? I'll be there soon. Don't worry. Speaking of that, Mike, are you going to VMX in Tampa?
I'm about this close to being able to pull the trigger to say yes. I'm really hoping that I can get there, because a lot of people.
I will tell you this, Mike, and I'll make this offer to you. We have rented a home on a channel, and it's in the Tampa, St. Pete area. And we have room for you if you can make it, so you don't have to pay for the hotel. So if that makes it easier for you to say yes, you might be sleeping on the sofa, but you got a place to stay.
You and I are definitely going to be talking about that, and I seriously appreciate it. Folks, I'm telling you, there are so many things that I could say about Austin, and all of them extremely positive. It's just, for shits and grins, folks, I was sitting at a table at the OHVT. I was sitting at a table, and it was towards the back because I just kind of wanted to watch and see what was going on. And James Jarvis said everybody needs to move up closer to the podium. Austin picks up his stuff. He goes to sit down. He goes, come on, you're right here. Grabs a chair next to him, plunks me down in the chair, and that's where we ran. And I'm like, okay. It's just, I've known you. Oh my God. See, we could get into so many stories, and I don't even want to do that because it's just, you have, and again, because you have been, and you mentioned it, the CEO of Cutwood, CEO of Space Jam, CEO of, oh my God, I can't even think of the other one.
That's okay. Doesn't matter.
But
all good.
You have been at the top, and you kind of struck out to do more of what you're doing now. And it's just amazing because, folks, this guy was all the way up there, and he's coming back down, and he is down here with the rest of all of us. And listen to what he's saying. He's saying, get active, be proactive. I know some CEOs, some larger people, if I could put it that way, have been talking about advocacy, have been talking about pushing, doing the right thing. And I know a hell of a lot of CEOs that have said nothing. So kudos in what you're doing. Honest to God, I really appreciate what you do.
I appreciate that. It's been a wild ride in the vape game. There's no question about that. Oh, somebody said something funny.
I have to make a retraction. He said, plus I miss your face. Nick came back, he goes, that was for you, Mike. Nick, I love you.
Oh, wow. It's like that.
See, this is what I wanted to have a show for, is to get people to be a little bit uplifted, to be able to talk, to be able to say, okay, things look like hell right now. However.
Okay, well, let's talk about that for a second, Mike. Let's talk about Albany, New York, right? It was thunderstorms and dark clouds the other day.
Yep.
Now we can see rays of sunshine. And I'm not saying the forecast isn't going to change moving forward. But today you can see sun on the horizon.
Yep.
Because they took effort and they showed up and they did what they needed to do, and they testified. They talked about their small business and that they needed help, right? You even have convenience stores in there talking, right? They don't want this to go away. I mean, there's so many things that are going on that, we do have a voice, and if we allow it to be heard, we'll make a difference. Right? If we just sit back and wait for them to make their decision and we don't get involved, well, then shame on us.
Yep.
Shame on us. Because we have a voice and we vote. And if you vote, those people, you voted those people in. Remind them of that. I vote for you.
That is one of the biggest things I try to tell people. If you have a chance to talk to your representative on the phone, or even better, if you have a chance to see them in person, and you can say, I'm a constituent, I voted for you, and if they waffle, say, I voted for you, and that's placing my trust in you.
Yes.
Don't be afraid to tell them how you feel. Don't give them the F word, because they'll show you the door quicker than anything. Okay?
Well, you have to be respectful. There's no question.
Yep.
Right? I mean, so imagine, for instance, you go to TSA, right? And I have pre-check, right? And sometimes when I go to LA, depending on what time I'm flying, pre-check is not available, right? So I have to go through the regular line. Now, all I have to do when I get there is tell them that I'm pre-check, right? And they'll let me go through, right? I don't have to take my shoes off. I have to do any of the crazy stuff. And so the thing is that, but if I go there and I'm mean and I'm arrogant because I'm in a rush or I'm irritated, right? Then they're like, sir, pre-check's closed. And then I got to take my shoes off. I got to take my computer out of my bag. It's all in how you talk to people about anything, right? It's just like what never ceases to amaze me. And I'm sorry, I'm playing with this pod because I figured out how to refill it, is that people will get snotty with the server that is bringing them their food. Why would you ever do that? Right? First of all, they work with a bunch of people that probably don't appreciate them all day. Just be nice. And I have this saying, right? And it's DBA, right? Which most people think is doing business as. And really what it means is don't be an ass. Just be nice. Don't be you hurting someone else's feelings isn't going to make you feel better. And hopefully, if you do hurt someone's feeling, it actually makes you feel worse. Otherwise, you're not really caring about your fellow human being.
Yep.
And that's the whole thing that we need to do in the vape world. We all got in this so we could get people off combustible tobacco, right? So we could help people. And yeah, some of us have made good money. Some of us made great money. Some of us made a little money. But the thing that we get to take with us is the fact that we're doing good for people. That it's 95% less harmful, right? They don't allow us to use the safer word anymore, right? So it's 95% less harmful. If I brought out a car that was 95% less harmful, people would rush to buy it. Tesla is a prime example. The Prius is a prime example, right, of that product that is less harmful, right? Now, if we could use the word safer, we would say that if I could give you a car that's 95% safer, would you drive it?
Yes.
It would be the only one people would go buy because they'd want to protect their kids. They'd want to protect their loved ones, their pets. Everybody would buy that car.
Hands down.
And I'm not... Go ahead.
Hands down, they'd buy it.
Oh, yeah. And the whole thing is that, we have a product that no one today, as of today, at this moment, in the 10 years we've been doing it, do we know of anyone who's died from vaping? Not that I'm aware of, right? So, and then they want to say, well, nicotine is brain poison. That's all the stuff that I hear in California. There's even signs for buses when I drive by, nicotine is brain poison. Okay. Well, maybe it is for the youth, right? And Mike, you and I are similar in age. So what I will tell you is that my parents raised me, right? If my dad said don't do it, he was a Marine, I didn't do it because I didn't want to deal with my dad's wrath. Police officers didn't scare me. Principals didn't scare me. None of that bothered me. My dad, a completely other story.
Yep.
Right? And what was even more scary is when my mother said, don't make me tell your father.
Yeah.
Right. So that was the thing for me. And, and you hear all these comedians and they talk about, growing up, their mom would fling a shoe across the room to tell them, she had to tell them don't do it. Right. You only pull the TV off of the TV tray on your head once. Right. Now we got plugs over electric sockets and all that. And, you and I grew up in a completely different era. Right. And so for people to say we're trying to protect children, well, what are the parents doing? Why are they waiting for a community to raise their children for them? Right? You could get, so let's talk about, okay, so let's stop children from using a nicotine product, just like we stopped them from using marijuana, just like we stopped them from using prescription drugs, just like we stopped them from using illicit drugs. The war on drugs didn't work, but yet we made it illegal.
Yeah.
Right? You're not supposed to drink and get behind the wheel of a car. People do it every day.
Yep.
So you can make laws, but if you don't enforce them, it's kind of like a restraining order, right? Young lady who's getting unfortunate abuse from someone, or even a man, right? Goes and gets this restraining order. Is that piece of what? Just because they hold up that piece of paper doesn't stop that person, right? The law enforcement has to be there to enforce that.
Yep.
And that's the thing, is we have to enforce the law. Florida is a prime example, right? The Florida Smoke-Free Association introduced T18, which meant that no one under the age of 18 could buy products. So now when I was down there, they wanted to do T21, which was the same thing that T18 was, and they weren't enforcing it. So my question to them was, is that why are we putting this law into effect and we're not enforcing the other one? And then, of course, it came out that if you're 18, you can't buy cigarettes or vapor products, but you go buy that cigar, you'll be okay. Right? That was baffling to me. 100 to 400 milligrams of nicotine in a cigar, plus the combustion and tar and no filter. That's okay for an 18-year-old, but a 95% less harmful product and a filtered product that has 21 milligrams of nicotine, we don't want them to be able to get those till they're 21. But you go ahead and get that 100 to 400 milligram non-filtered tar-causing combustible cigar. I'm sorry, what? Did I hear that correctly? So thank goodness they actually had that in there, because that was one of the things when the American Heart Association and the American Cancer Society said, we can't support that. Right? So at least that was kudos. And we go down there, and here's the crazy part. After driving 36 hours to get there, they go in and we get a win, because they say, oh, they're going to retract all this stuff, right? They're going to mark it out. They're going to do an amendment. So then the last thing to be heard is this issue, and the guy retracts his amendment, and it's going through as it was. And we're all just beside ourselves. So the president, Robert, the Florida Smoke-Free Association, I turned in our sheets, as well as I believe it was the American Cancer Society, turned in his. Right? They called his name, said, "Oh, you're in opposition," and they wouldn't even let us talk. After I had driven there 36 hours, Nick Orlando had came up, right? So he had to drive up there, and a bunch of other people came up. There was a bunch of us there, and then we didn't even get to speak, and it was just so frustrating for us. And that's when the lobbyist came to us and said, "Guys, it's okay. It's got to go through the House. I'll take care of it." Florida is still 26-0. It's an amazing state, and that's why. And you heard Nick come up and share in Ohio.
Yep.
Right. And those same things happened in New York, in Albany, because people showed up and they did the right thing. They took the initiative and the action, and kudos to them. Right. And, that's the thing, is how do we continue to move forward and to come together as a community? And I think that's what we need to figure out. You and I were talking earlier about how do we get everybody together, right, as a group, and how powerful that would be if we could all learn from all the state organizations, all the national organizations. We could all meet and put egos aside for a second and really focus on what's best for the industry, and leave whatever has happened in the past and say, this is what's ahead of us, and how do we do it? Everybody knows how you eat an elephant, one bite at a time. Right? If we got 100 people taking a bite out of this elephant, we're going to get it gone to a carcass before long. Right? And there'll be nothing left except for what the vultures want. And that's what we have to figure out is how do we eat this elephant one bite at a time?
It's one of the bigger things. It's on the plate. How are we going to get all that done? We're going to take a quick break because I need to do our sponsor slot program. Because without our sponsors, Smoke Free Radio could not do what it does. So if you give me just a minute, we'll be back in just a few minutes.
Hey now, this is Dimitri with Smoke Free Radio reminding you to please show some love to our wonderful sponsors. Without them, there would be no Smoke Free Radio, and they are as follows. All the way from Florida, Moon Mountain Vapor with locations in Florida and their liquid available for wholesale and retail, moonmountainvapor.com. Some of the best custards and tobaccos on the market from the Brickwills Vaping Company. The lovely Shell with a vapor bar, locations in Texas, Virginia, and West Virginia. And of course online at thevaporbar.com. And who says you can't have award-winning e-liquid without cartoon characters? That's exactly what you're going to get at theplumeroom.com. And finally, of course, the Vaping Advocate magazine that has generously provided the telephone lines for you to communicate with us. Thank you for your support. And finally, for you, the listener, don't forget to check out the coupons and codes page on Smoke Free Radio. Pick up some e-liquid and save some money. From all of us here at Smoke Free Radio, thank you for your continued support.
Hey folks, P. Basardo here, and you're listening to Vaping and the Mic with Mike Peterson.
Coming back here from our short break after I opened up a can of pop, and thank God it's like further down than what the camera's picking up because I'm wearing it. And I'm like, oh my God. Joining me this evening is Mr. Austin Hopper, the face of Vape, the man that is currently, and if you would, tell me what your current liquid line that you're working with. Tell me about them. Hold on 1 second. There we go. Now I can hear you.
I've been unmuted by the host. Thank goodness. So I am the president of Tailored Vapors in Santa Ana, California. We have our flagship line, which is Tailored House, Tailored Iced Teas, and of course, Tailored Sharks, formerly known as Shark Gummies.
Awesome. See, the man is quick and to the point. Tell me, because I haven't been able to wrap my head around some things. First, I'm going to start kind of up in the north. What lunacy happened in San Francisco?
You mean on flavor bans?
Yeah.
Or on banning vaping and smoking and everything altogether?
Yeah, just banning everything.
Well, I guess first we need to start in Southern California when Laguna Beach actually banned smoking and vaping in their city. They were actually the first California city to do it, which is ironic. So most people don't know, but the first electronic cigarette store in the U.S. was in Laguna Beach, California. And it was opened by a gentleman by the name of Jason Schaefer, which was E-Cig City. And it was opened in Laguna Beach, which happens to be my hometown. My father was in the Marine Corps at Camp Pendleton. And my mother came out here following him from Indiana and fell in love with Laguna Beach. Laguna Beach has always been a very forward-thinking, be who you want to be, live free city. And now, obviously, there's a lot of people coming in that have kids in school. They're now in city council. Well, they don't want any smoking or vaping. And you have to remember, Laguna Beach is one of the number one tourist destinations in the world. And so now you can't smoke there, you can't vape there unless you're in your car or in your own home. You can't vape in public. So what I like to do is I like to, and I'm not a cloud chucker. If you know me, I don't chuck clouds.
Mm-hmm.
So what I like to do is I like to get in my convertible and I like to chuck all the clouds I can in my convertible. Because I'm saying I'm in my car. So at any rate, so it started there, and now San Francisco. My assumption is that they have a large irritation at Jewel Manufacturing, which is actually in San Francisco. So I think that has a lot to do with it. And I don't know why they would, because look at all the income they get from it. All the employees, all the tax revenue, right? If you really want to clean something up in San Francisco, maybe we ought to clean up the homeless sleeping in the doorways of businesses, because I don't know if you've ever been to San Francisco, Mike, but it smells like a bathroom that hasn't been cleaned since it was built in downtown. You think I'm kidding, but I'm not, because they don't have a vagrancy law there. So homeless people can sleep in doorways and they won't run them off. And unfortunately, they do what people do when they don't have a bathroom. They go where they have to go when they need to go. And so, there's an issue there. And, so it's, how do we look at fixing things in a city or a state? And unfortunately, they want to look at something that they think that they can sink their teeth into that people will get behind. And we all know California had the first smoke-free city, which was Laguna Hills, California. So they were the first ones to initiate the Clean Air Act. So this is nothing new for California. Except we haven't educated them to say, hey, this isn't combustible tobacco.
Yeah.
Right? And there's no secondhand issue. So it's unfortunate that vapor has been categorized as and being demonized. So it's unfortunate that these type of things go into a hearing and they make these things happen, where normally in California what you have is a ballot initiative where you have to put it on the ballot and let the people vote. So I was very shocked that it went through the way that it did. And I think that's the crazier thing, is that, we're the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Mm-hmm.
But our personal freedoms are being withheld from us all of a sudden. And I think that's unfortunate. And, California specific, we pay a lot to live in California. We have not only do we have high real estate costs, high gasoline costs, high food costs, all of these high costs. We also have the unfortunate reality is that we pay more to have our car on the road for license plates, for license fees.
Mm.
And we pay more for auto insurance. We pay 10% in personal income tax to the state of California, soon to be 13. So imagine 13 cents of every dollar I make goes to the state of California. But yet they're going to say, hey, we know that you're giving all this money to us because you're vaping and you make your money off vaping, but we don't want you to do it, but yet we still want you to give us the money. So it's unfortunate that California does the things that it does, but I would much rather see one city doing that. I mean, we pay a 68% tax, right, in California. So I understand the 10% tax is higher in Ohio, but I mean, you got to figure that tax, and it's on the manufacturing cost, thank goodness. So it isn't on the retail sell of it. And that's the unfortunate reality for us. So even the flavor bans and the banning it in cities and doing these things aside, we've already been hit with a crazy tax. We're already T21. And everybody wants to go T21, and I'm sure federally one day it's going to happen. I can show you from Juul's own research and the FDA's own research that vapor stores lost 19.3% of their business when T21 hit. And then convenience stores gained 19.8%. So not only did they not discourage people from doing it, convenience stores sales increased by 0.5%, where do you think the number one gross offender is for people not being carded and selling to underage people is? It's at a convenience store level.
Yep.
Or at a drugstore. And here's why, and I'm not trying to pick on anybody. So let's say you work at 7-Eleven, Arco, any of the gas station convenience stores here, AM, PM. You got 9 people in line. You got gas pumps going off. People's cards getting declined, right? And then, of course, they're like, I don't know why my card would get declined. You know, you're not from here, right? You don't speak English as a first language. So you look at this ID that you really can't read for the camera so they can see you're looking at it, and you hand it back to them, right? They have 9 people in line. They're just trying to get people out the door. A vapor store is completely different and completely separate from that, as we all know, because we get the time to be able to talk to them and say, oh, you want to get off combustible tobacco? Well, what kind of cigarettes are you smoking? Oh, you smoke Marlboro Reds. How many do you smoke a day? Oh, I probably smoke 2 packs. Okay. So we need to get them on 18, 12 nic level. We know that. They don't need 50.
Nope.
Nobody needs a 50 nic level. I'm sorry, you just don't. We didn't start out on that. I remember we had 36. And I don't know about you, but vaping 36 was hard. Right? I did do 24 for a while and then went 18, 12, 6. Remember, 3 didn't even exist. Remember when we first started, 3 was something that nobody had even thought of.
Yep.
And then 3 became the thing. And then we had 0. I remember even trying to do 1.5 because people would be like, 3's too much.
Oh.
Right? So then they wanted 1.5. So now our alternative is that, awesome. So 3, 50. How in the world does anybody need that? Right? So, maybe do they have a point that we're not being good stewards in the industry? I'm sure some could argue that, right? Because a pack of Marlboro Lights has about 21 milligrams of nicotine per pack. So if that's what they're smoking, and Reds have 56, right? Does somebody who's smoking a pack of Marlboro Lights really need a 50? No. They don't need that to quit. They need education. They need support, right? They need to be like, hey, can I get you? Can I call you? Right? Can you come in next week and let me know how you're doing? Right? I have a doctor friend of mine who's a dentist, and he doesn't like smelling like cigarettes when he works on patients. Makes complete sense. So I remember when I gave him his first vape, I said, hey, I need you to call in and check in with me. So he would call me 3 times a day to let me know how he's doing.
Wow.
Right? Those are the things that we need to be doing as shops, saying, hey, we know it's tough. We know it's hard to quit. We've been there. So, let's get a support group going, right? Here's Billy's pack of cigarettes. He stopped smoking 2 days ago, right? Billy's coming in on Friday at 3 o'clock. Can you be here Friday at 3 o'clock? Let me introduce you to Billy. You guys have a similar quit date. Right? And how do we get these guys to help motivate each other? Right? Those are the things we've got to figure out. How to get people engaged and stay engaged. And they're not going to get that at a convenience store. They'll get that at a vapor store.
The convenience store is never going to be able to offer even a portion because, as you mentioned, they don't give a damn. They have 500 products. They don't make money selling gasoline. I had this argument with somebody else. Well, a convenience store or gas station, they make money selling. No, they actually make about 3 cents per gallon that they sell.
They make no money on gasoline. They make it on all the other things.
Yep, they make it on anything that they sell inside the store. And their job is to get you in, get you out, and get you gone. So they can get somebody else to pull up to the pump or somebody else to park in front of the store. That's it. And
how many people behind that counter know how to explain what this is, first of all?
Nope.
How to change the coil?
Nope.
They don't know. They don't know what you need to vape. They don't know how to work on any of the devices. They don't know how to tell you whether it's a pass-through, not a pass-through. They have no idea. right? They can tell you Doritos are on aisle 3. That's it.
This is why I keep looking at people and they say, well, our shop won't be affected. Wrong. Albany. Albany was going to pass. Look at this for the folks that are listening. Albany was going to pass one bill, a flavor ban. And you might not think that it would be that big, but it would decimate every vapor store in Albany. And other surrounding states would go, hey, that's Albany, that's their problem. No. Albany's doing it because San Francisco did it, because some jerk down the street from San Francisco said, well, let's do this. And, oh, wait, there was some big-name actor that said, but you cannot do that to cigars. And look what happened. All the vapor's gone. You can only buy cigarettes and cigars if you're in a hotel.
And he'll be back.
Yeah. These things rolled downhill, folks. And the man that you're looking at, right here, and I'll put him up on the big blow-up, this man can tell you how trends work.
Who are they seeing?
They're seeing you, dude.
Oh, okay. Hey, guys.
You're on the expanded view, if you will. But these are trends that will follow and go from state to state to state. Now, I don't want to touch on this subject a whole lot, just making people aware of that little piece of something called the Master Settlement Agreement.
Yes.
And we all know, if anybody is interested, look it up, drop me a line on Vaping and the Mic, hit Facebook, I'll point you in the right direction. So many people will. Every state gets tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars from the tobacco industry. Why? Because they sold that many cigarettes and that much tobacco product. So if the packs of cigarettes decline, so does their MSA money.
Well, and that's one of the things California, unfortunately, they sold these bonds based on the anticipated revenue, and now they're in trouble. That's one of the big reasons why we have such a high tax on vape and those type of things in California, is to make up that lost revenue. There's no secret behind that. You're right. The Master Settlement Agreement was to keep them from being sued after that one attorney won his case, and they went to everybody and said, hey, Congress, we'd like to make you an offer. And it was done, right? Now they can't be sued anymore for selling a product that kills people. So, and granted, right, I smoked for years. It's a habit. It's tough to break. But when you have a product like vaping, which not only is 95% less harmful, but doesn't make you smell bad, right? So I was on the board for cystic fibrosis in Orange County. Do you know parents that vape do not have to shower before they touch their children with cystic fibrosis, but a parent who smokes does?
I did not know that.
So cystic fibrosis knows something we don't know, right? The fact that they're putting vapor stores inside of hospitals in the UK ought to tell us something, right? Which is why my post was, wake up, FDA.
Yep.
There's a reason why the Royal College of Physicians says, hey, this is okay. And let me say this, and I don't speak for the vapor industry as a whole. This is Austin Hopper's view only. If you have never smoked and you're not addicted to nicotine, do not pick up a vapor product.
Please don't.
If for some reason, I don't know where you went there, buddy.
I don't know. Your video kind of went.
Somebody called. I think
there you go.
Back. There we go. So if you do not have an addiction to nicotine, please do not pick up a nicotine alternative product. It doesn't make you cool. It isn't awesome, right? But it's certainly a much better alternative to going out and lighting up a combustible cigarette, which is why I do it. It's because I'm addicted to nicotine, and truthfully, I just like it, right? But I'm a former 2.5 pack a day smoker. So let's not forget that. So what I'm doing today is much less harmful for me than it was in smoking. There are insurance companies like Prudential that say if you're a vapor, that's okay. And they will give you life insurance at a non-smoker rate.
Wow.
Now, it's different than if you've never smoked rate, but it's not a smoker rate. So they understand that it's better for our health. And I think that's the thing is that, where are we going to get the studies that the U.S. government will say, yep, we accept that? Because what I hear all the time is, yeah, the UK studies have been debunked. By whom? Right? I hear this. So, the Florida Smoke-Free Association is definitely big on my radar. Dolores Orlando, got to be one of the hardest working advocates in the industry who's never smoked. She's not a vapor. She sees what it's done for her family and her friends and her community. And she's like, the Moffitt Cancer Society, Tampa's own cancer research center, says that if you use combustible tobacco, you should use e-cigarettes to get off of it. There are studies that show that I think it says it's twice, don't quote me on this, but I know it's at least twice as effective as patches and gum. Right? Those things are FDA approved. We're not. And this was the argument that I had to have while in Florida at the House of Representatives, is that we use the same pharmaceutical grade liquid nicotine that's used in the patches, lozenges, and gum. We don't use any nicotine that comes from the leaf tobacco that's for combustible tobacco. Two separate animals. And that's why the guy from the American Heart Association says, and I'm going to make fun of him because I can, nicotine is nicotine, he said. And I had to point out that nicotine is not nicotine. No. And it's unfortunate that they get on this spot where it's their righteous indignation, right, that we're bad for people. Show me the study where one person has died who's a vapor from vaping. That's all. Just one. Nobody can say this killed me. Can't do it. Never going to happen.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Just your own personal thought. You hear a lot of anti-vaping advocates, anti-vaping groups, tobacco-free kids, I call them Kentucky Fried Tobacco. All these different places. Now, a lot of these places, American Heart Association, American Lung Association, they get their money from donations, and they are dependent in some way on people smoking, because if everybody stopped, 3/4 of these groups would die because they would have no money, and hundreds of people would be out of jobs. But here's the thing. How does it make you feel that you have heard more about don't vape? And when was the last time you heard any of these organizations tell kids don't smoke?
Well, okay, so let's be fair.
Okay.
Right? So let's look at our more kids in school, right? Whether that's high school and down, are they getting caught with combustible tobacco or other pod type systems? Which are they getting caught with at school? And that's why the epidemic, if you will, which was certainly created as a buzzword, right? Nobody decided that that was just something that was smart, right? So they knew they could get people's attention with calling it an epidemic. An epidemic is how many kids are dying from opiate overdose in Ohio every week, Mike? What is it, 9? That's an epidemic. Right? We don't have 9 kids dying from vaping every week in the state of Ohio. Let's focus on that. But the unfortunate reality is the reason they're not talking about don't smoke, those kind of things, versus vaping is more prevalent, is because that's what kids are getting caught with. And I'm going to say as a parent that I would much rather knowing that it's 95% less harmful, it would be easier for me to say, whew, at least it wasn't a cigarette, right? Not that I'm saying that kids should vape, right? Because that's not what I'm saying at all. I don't want people to put words in my mouth. So, but if they're going to experiment, because they're going to, it's just what kids do, right? You have kids, they experiment, right? Whether that's drinking underage, trying marijuana, trying cigarettes, all of these things that we all did. It's a rite of passage. And 75% of people never even go back to it, right? But I remember in high school, we had what we called Cancer Corner. That's where you went on the other side of the street off school property so they couldn't bother you to smoke. So,
see, now, the funny thing with that, Austin, I didn't start smoking until I was 19. So all the things I knew about these people in high school, they called them the burnouts, the weeds, whatever, but I was never part of that. So there's a gap in my education or knowledge, if you will, when it comes to that. But you're right. It's enforcement. Nobody enforces. I spoke with a former police chief, a good friend of mine, and he told me, he goes, they won't enforce a kid sitting there smoking because, and he told me, and I covered this in a different show, because it would mean the officer has to write them up, take them down to the JJC. They have to do all the paperwork. They have to call the parents. The parents have to come down. So this officer now is 3 hours with one kid that was smoking, and he's not patrolling. He's not stopping domestic abuse. He's not being able to respond to domestic violence. He goes, so our man can only do so much in a day. Here are the top 10 things that they respond to on every week. What do you want them to do? And I said, smoking has to take the bottom. I don't want somebody not responding to somebody, physical violence and all that. So it becomes the enforcement issue. And what you were saying earlier, there was, from Regulator Watch, with Brent Stafford, had an interview with Dr. David Abrams, and even Dr. David Abrams, who is a seriously credentialed man, turned around and said, I would rather, and I would tell anybody, I would rather have my 14-year-old granddaughter vape than smoke.
Of course. Not that we wanted to do either.
No. He said, but if she were to come up and she were telling me I was going to do one or the other, he'd rather see her vape.
Sure.
But that comes from, and these are the things that the general public is not hearing. They get their news clips.
We haven't had the Mayo Clinic, Cedars-Sinai's Heart Institute, UCI Medical, or any of these people come out and say, in the U.S., in California, right, UCLA Medical, nobody's come out and said, you know what, vaping's okay. Because everybody wants the grant money to do all the things to say it's not okay.
Yep.
And I'm not sure if anyone's aware of this, and you brought up about the American Cancer Society and those kind of things, where they get their money from. There was actually a time when they were accepting grants to come out and speak against vaping, which is illegal, but they were doing it. So it's amazing the ridicule that we've gotten as an industry that has been disruptive to combustible tobacco sales. And as long as we are continuing to take money out of the pockets of states and capitals and those type of things, we're always going to be the bad guy, right?
Fig brought up a good point here in the chat, talking about kids. He goes, whether they're busted with cannabis cartridge or Juul, it's being reported as vaping.
Well, that's ridiculous. Huh. Well, that's good to know.
These are things that I don't know, and I learned so much in talking to a lot of people. we've blown well past our hour, and I'm not going to hog up all of your evening because you and I could sit here and bullshit all night long.
We could.
If you could tell a couple of people or anybody that is listening anything that you would want to tell them about vaping, what would you tell them?
Is this someone who's currently listening to the broadcast now?
And the podcast. Podcast
Okay.
later, reviews.
If you, doesn't matter whether you are a user, consumer, manufacturer, distributor, shop owner, get involved. Find out who your state group is. Find out who your national organization is. Find some commonalities and get involved and do your part. And it doesn't mean that you have to give money because you may not have it, but everybody has time. And a wise man once told me, people in the world have two things. Everybody has money and time. Not everybody has the same amount of money, but we all have 24 hours in a day.
Mm-hmm.
Use your time wisely. And when you see that call to action go out, whether it's CASA if you're a consumer, the VTA, SFATA, your state organization, get involved, right? Get involved. If vaping has truly saved your life, like everybody wants to put this meme on their social media, back it up with action, right? I was told that desire without action is fantasy, right? Get involved, do your part. Don't expect somebody else to do it for you. If vaping is important to you, show it by getting involved. That would be the number one thing I would say to anybody who's currently a vapor or in the vapor industry. And if you know someone that you wish would get off combustible tobacco, send me an email, austinh@tailoredvapors.com, and we'll make sure they get product. We'll make sure and give them that opportunity if they're ready. Because that's what's important, is to get the current user off combustible tobacco. And when you see those calls to action, get involved. Right? Preaching at people doesn't help, right? Don't look at somebody and tell them, oh, you need to get off that, and this is all the reasons why. Tell them why your life is better because you're a vapor. Right? That's pretty much what I got, Mike. I don't know if you got anything else, but you can get involved.
That's awesome. Don't go anywhere. Believe it or not. And I don't know who this is. We're going to find out just in a second.
Oh, we got a call.
Believe it or not.
Believe it or not, I'm walking on air.
I will. How many people can tell me the name of the show that came from? I'm not going to say it. I'm going to wait for somebody to type it out. I know exactly where that came from. That was actually very nice.
Yeah, we're showing our age.
And I just stopped to say that, and the call dropped. You believe this? Whoever was in there, if you got a second, give a call back, because I'll pick up the phone.
And I'll sing the theme song again just in case you missed it. Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I never thought I could feel so free. I'll give 4 free bottles of V-Liquid if anybody can guess that theme song. From Tailored Vapors.
Fig was close. Nick Orlando hit it right on the button. Greatest American hero.
Nick, let me know what you want.
That's up to them. Here is our call returning. Let's see if I can actually pick this up. Area code 727. You are on the air with Mike and Austin Hopper. How are you?
We're going to take a short pause for a real good cause. We're having a little technical difficulty here.
We're going to press one more button. Area code 727. This is Mike with Vaping and the Mic. You're on live with Austin Hopper. Are you there?
Hey, Nick Orlando here. How you guys doing?
Nick!
I got a quick
hey,
question.
buddy. I've got my golf clubs polished up.
So we were back, a while ago when we were talking about vapor industry kind of being somewhat under attack. And the question I had for Austin was, do you think that we bring some of this on ourselves from our marketing and the way we do things as an industry? I mean, do you think that we're kind of low-hanging fruit at this point?
Well, let me assure you this, Nick. is that there are a lot of brands on the market currently that do things above board in the right way. And I'm going to say that that is probably 25% of the industry. And I'm going to say you've got another 75% of the industry that is a bunch of cowboys that is in for hit and run money. And unfortunately, they come out with this crazy marketing that gets people hooked on these labels, and consumers want it. So the stores carry it. Instead of saying, no, I don't carry those products in my store, and here's why I don't. So, yeah, we have a responsibility as an industry and as a store and as manufacturers to do things the right way. So, yes, we bring it on ourselves because there's no question that when I was watching the Albany video online on YouTube live, and a e-liquid called unicorn poop was recognized as being one of the issues and concerns. Well, thank goodness I never shoveled any poop from a unicorn. I may have milked one, but that's a different story. So, what I will tell you is, yes, we do bring it on ourselves because we allow those things to be put into stores because consumers come in and ask for it. Instead of educating the consumer on why we don't carry those products, stores bring them in because they want the money.
Okay, I just wanted some clarity on that. I know, we're constantly stomping our feet as an industry, and I see it all the time on social media that, woe is me, and it's late, and we're under attack, and this and that. But what are we doing? And I just wanted to make sure that everybody, like you guys were on the same page as me, because I might be crazy. I'm not sure. So I just wanted to make sure
crazy.
that
That's
I'm
a
thinking
completely
along the right
different
lines. We're bringing it on ourselves, right?
Well, there's no question that when you look at some of the brands that are on the market, they're here for what I call hit and run money, Nick. So they know they're never going to go through a PMTA process. They know that they've got a short period of time left, and they're selling things, and they're selling it so cheap that stores pick it up because they can make good margin on it. And it's the unfortunate reality is that they don't care about the industry. They know they're not going to be here next year. They don't have any plan to stay in business, and they don't give money to their state advocacy group. They don't give any money to the national groups, and they don't show up at shows. They don't do marketing. They don't do education, and they don't support their store partners. They think because they give it to them at a low price that makes everything okay. And until stores stop buying it and start educating customers, then we're always going to get attacked because they're always going to point out, as well as I do, Nick, when you show up at a senator's office or a House of Representatives office, and they always go back to, well, what about this? And then they pull up some bottle that's got a little girl in front of the school holding a donut on a vape bottle. Right. And I know that's really far out there, but you know exactly what I'm saying is that the label is inappropriate. The name of the juice is inappropriate. And sure, we bring it on ourselves. And that's the unfortunate reality is until stores tell them, I don't want your product on my shelf, those guys are going to continue to do the same thing they've been doing. And stores have to make a stand that say, I'm not going to sell it. I don't care. Because the unfortunate reality is that where's your morals, right? If you really care about the industry and you care about getting people off combustible tobacco, where do you really stand in that? And that's what you got to ask yourself, unfortunately. So.
Understood. Well, I want to thank you guys for your time tonight. It was a great show, and I appreciate both of you very much. So, I just
and what's your thoughts
again,
on that,
make
Nick?
sure that my
Since
thought
we have
process
you.
was correct.
Nick, what's your thought about the bringing it on ourselves?
Ditto.
Okay.
There's just,
Well, I'm going to give you a
barrier
perfect
industry,
example.
and we went out of control really fast, and people jumped in, and we weren't regulated. It was a conglomeration of several things, and we are where we are, but the majority of our industry, and I think there's a very good percentage, 75%, did not snap into shape. And we, meaning the industry, we can't do a whole lot. So we depended on the FDA. Those that abide by the deeming regs as best we can are looking for somewhat of enforcement on at least the deeming, and we haven't seen any of that. I mean, Christ, I've got people around the corner from my stores making juice still with dogs running around the shop for crying out loud. So, I'm a little frustrated, but because I'm trying to do things right to the tune of losing sales to adult consumers over the years, but we are where we are, and we'll just keep going and making it happen.
Well, and I'll bring this, and I'll call myself to the table. So at Tailored, years ago, they had a brand called Shark Gummies, which we have now ordered the new boxes and labels to be Tailored Sharks. And Nick carries my Tailored House and my Tailored Iced Teas. And he and Dolores told me they wouldn't carry Shark Gummies. Do you know why, Mike?
No, I do not.
It said gummies on the box. And he said gummies indicate that it's candy. And children eat candy. And we can't have that on our shelf. I love you, Austin, but I can't pick it up. So I went through all this thought process, and I sent him the labels ahead of time for Tailored Sharks. And I said, is this something you can put on your shelf? And he said, yeah, I like this, I like that. So I had to go back and do a second revision. And the other day when I'm on the phone after sending it to him, he said, hey, I thought you were sending me Tailored Sharks. Right? So it's about doing the right thing and not always being the smartest guy in the room. Reaching out to people and say, if I did this, would this be acceptable? And getting involved and taking advice from people, right? I'm not the smartest guy in the room all the time, right? I'm the smartest guy in the room right now, maybe because it's me and a pit bull, but that's even questionable, right? My pit bull may be smarter than me. But Nick, I appreciate you calling in, and I do agree that we do set ourselves up for failure at some of the things we do as an industry. And I was talking to a larger e-liquid manufacturer who said, at one time we used to do the booty shorts and the tank tops, and we want to change that image. And they've started getting involved in more advocacy and doing things and creating news videos and keeping people up to date on what's going on throughout the industry. So kudos to them. And I agree with you, Nick, that there is changes that need to take place. And it really starts with the manufacturers, and it starts with the stores taking a stand like you did, saying, I won't put Shark Gummies on my shelf, right? The flavors are awesome, Austin, but I can't have gummies on my shelf. And I appreciate you being honest enough with me to draw my attention to that and making a change, right? So you can see it didn't fall on deaf ears.
Well, I very much appreciate you, gentlemen, and I'm going to get off the phone because I know Mike was ready to wrap it up, and I was on hold. And
oh, we've got one more
call.
call.
Your evening, so.
Tell your lovely wife I said hello.
But I do appreciate you guys.
Thanks,
I'll
Nick.
do it. And I hope to see Mike in Tampa.
Dude,
he'll be there. He's crashing to my house.
Oh, you heard the man, so it looks like I'm going to be going to Tampa.
Mike, I came up to see you in that cold, rainy weather.
Dude, I was so amazed to see you at the OHVTA conference and to be able to spend time and talk to you. You said something in that has stuck with me. You said it is better to have a group of dedicated people more than it is to have a group of large numbers. And I wrote it down.
How do we get both?
I appreciate you saying that, and I am so glad that you got something from that because, I'm listening to you guys talk about intimidation, and I crack myself up every time I hear it because Austin tried to tell me that, and then I heard you and Bo talking about it, and I was like, you guys got to be kidding me.
No.
But it was so nice to meet you, man.
You're
amazing.
You have, and I mean this in a polite sense, Nick, honest to God, you have a look and a persona. When you are in a business mode, I wouldn't want to screw with you, and I don't think anybody else would, because you look like you have come in and you're going to rip somebody's head off, and then you're going to go home and have pasta for dinner.
Well, maybe I shouldn't go to
is gonna have
Tallahassee
pasta for
anymore.
dinner.
Maybe that's the problem here. I don't know. Or maybe it's a good thing. I don't know.
No, it's a good thing
It is.
because what I will tell you is that I know I always feel safe around you.
No, it was fantastic to be able to meet you, to be able to shake your hand, talk to you after all the time. It was fantastic that you came up. I think a lot of people were floored, but yet I took an honest to God.
I very much appreciate you both. I can't say that enough.
We appreciate you, Nick, and everything that you do down there, 100%.
26-0, baby.
Thank you very much.
All right, Nick, I hope you have a great night.
You guys take care. You too. Have an amazing night. Win the day. We'll talk to you later.
Take care
Bye,
now.
Nick.
We've got Austin. If you have time, I've got one more phone call that's in here.
I have time.
All right. Area code 858.
Well, hello, fellas.
Figgy!
You guys.
I'd recognize that laugh anywhere.
So would I.
Can I tell you?
The man with the hair. How you doing, Fig?
I'm pretty well. And I can tell that you guys are doing great yourselves. I tell you, one of the things about the face of vape is he has seen things that nobody else has in advance and behind. If there's anybody that knows the market of vapor, it's Austin Hopper.
Dude, that's 100% why I wanted to be able to put him on the show. When you talk about things, this is a man that has seen more things happen in front, behind, like you said. He's been all over, and there are very few people on the planet that have the experience that he does.
The man is a market maker. Like, if this was a stock market, he would be known as the market maker. I mean, you hear that? Cutwood, Space Jam, you name it. The man's done it. He's created it. And he's still here with that beautiful smile and songs to boot.
I know, the man can sing, right?
He makes me melt.
Fig, do you have an update on Wednesday in Sacramento?
Wednesday in Sacramento, we just today's Thursday, and we were just there yesterday.
I know. What's the
There's
update?
your update. It's a clusterfuck. We can spend 2 hours talking about that, and I'll do a little update on that later. But I do have a question for you, the man that does see things. I want to ask you this. It's kind of like, it's been on my mind for a while, but Brother Nick comes on, he asks a few questions about, like, did we shoot ourselves in the foot? Now, CBD, just a couple years ago, isolate was being sold at $19,000 a kilo.
Yeah.
And, shops were bringing it in. They're making good money. I'm seeing prices now between $3,000 and $5,000 a kilo. And myself personally, I'm going to go on record and say that the price of CBD is going to drop precipitously over the next 6 months. So the question I have for you is, where do you see that going for the vape shops that are in the wellness sectors as well? Do you think it's going to turn out to be one of those things that we wish we wouldn't have done that?
Well, okay, so let's look at Fig, and I won't talk about what our manufacturing cost was, but you manufacture your liquid, so you know what it costs to make a 15 ml bottle. You know what it costs to make a 30 ml bottle. And there was a time when we used to sell 15 ml bottles for $6, and we sold 30 ml bottles for $11. And distributors bought it at $1 less than what we sold at the stores for, and everybody was happy, right? And now you have manufacturers that are selling 100 ml bottles for what we used to sell a 15 ml bottle for. Distributors want crazy money prices in order to distribute it. And the only person who is no longer making money in the vapor industry is the manufacturer, right? So if we sell at X amount of dollars to a store, and they want to be able to make 3 times their money, because we've conditioned them to do that, because there was a large brand that I'll let remain nameless because I have a lot of respect for them, even though I don't like necessarily what they did in the beginning. They came in and sold at a really low price and set the precedence for us. And that's the same thing that companies are doing now with CBD products, because CBD done correctly and inside the lab and doing all the things, having it tested when it comes in, getting the COA, sending it back out to be tested after it's made is not cheap. The product liability insurance is not cheap. There is no way companies can sell it for what they're selling it for and be doing all the right processes throughout the way. So to answer your question, long story short, Fig, you're 100% correct. We are making a mistake in dropping the price on a product that has such potential benefits for people, because if you're processing it the right way and you're doing it the right way with product, and you're actually getting the COAs that has a potency that is effective, then you can't buy it at those cheap prices. Big, I had somebody call me last week and tell me they could get it for me at $1,200. And I'm like, you can keep it. I would never want it, because you know that it's never going to be a quality that you can put your name on, right? Just like, could you imagine vape tithing being tied to something that was a crappy product? You'd never do that, because you wouldn't want to take away from everything that you've done, built when you got in your car and you drove from state to state to organization to build this up. After me, you and your wife and my son Kenny sat in a restaurant in Oceanside and talked about your plan. And I'm like, I don't know how we make it work, Fig. And you said, I'm going to make it work, Austin. And you made it work. So you're absolutely right. We're going to wish we hadn't discounted products the way we do, that we haven't cut corners. And I'm not saying that you do or I do, but the companies that are cutting corners are only going to hurt the industry the same way that Nick was just talking about the industry of vaping. And it's going to be the same thing all over again. And, you know, everybody's trying to figure out, how do I jump on the new bandwagon to make money off CBD, because people aren't buying my vape product anymore. So that's for me in a nutshell.
Thank you. You do a much better job than I ever could with laying it out, and in that minute and a half, you really laid it down proper. And it is disconcerting to me, where I'm seeing shop after shop after shop that jumped into CBD. And look, I'm a supporter. I am a supporter of CBD, but it is disconcerting when we put so many eggs in a new basket because of revenues, and we're leaving smokers outside on the corner. And that's where I think, historically, that's where we've always had our growth. That's where we'll always have our growth in the future, by concentrating on the smokers that benefit from our primary source of income here. So, again, thank you so much, Austin. Mike, you guys, I just popped in to say hi, and next thing you know, an hour later, I'm still here, and I'm calling you in, and love you guys. I appreciate you both for all you do.
Vig,
thanks, Vig.
I appreciate you calling in, man. I truly do. Always love to hear your voice. Did you leave, Fig?
So I'm going to step off here, but thank you guys so much. Have a great night. Love you both.
Take care, Fig.
Thanks, Vig. Love you too, buddy.
All right, sir. That's an interesting look at your ceiling.
Well, unfortunately, I have an 8:00 meeting I've got to get to.
That's okay. We're already at an hour and a half, and I seriously appreciate you taking time tonight to
Of course, I appreciate you as always.
to really address things. Everybody,
without you and me together, there's no us. So without you, there's no me.
Well, it turns out to be a hell of a thing. For everybody that is listening, or going to be listening on the podcast later on, you have been listening to Mr. Austin Hopper. He is CEO of many different companies. He is currently running Tailored Vapor. Give him a shout. Check him out. He will
TailoredVapors.com.
There you go.
And I am going to do a sneak plug here real quick that I wasn't expecting. Here comes the hopper. Coming soon.
There you have it, folks. He and I were talking about that before the show started. I see he made up his mind.
Well, I might as well do the tease, right?
You got to love it.
Yes. All right, Mike, I appreciate you as always. Keep vaping the mic, brother. I got to go.
All right. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great night.
See you, buddy.
Take care. Okay, folks. That is our show in a nutshell for the evening. We're going to go ahead and wrap up. Thank you, everybody, for joining in the chat room. Thanks to Austin Hopper for being on here tonight. And I will catch up with everybody again next week on the next edition of Vaping and the Mic. I hope everybody has a great weekend.